All right, I have 2:32. Guess we can go ahead and get started. Clerk Russell, would you mind kicking us off?
Thank you, Griffin, and good afternoon to everyone who joined us for this budget training. I'm excited for this budget year. The budget committee has been working really hard, and I want to just encourage each and every one of you all we want to make sure that we get your information and what your needs are. Griffin is going to go into more detail about our base budget, but I just want to bring to your attention that your needs is important as well, because that is what our legislative committee uses to speak to our legislature. And just want to remind you all of that very important date, which is June 1st. So again, I thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Please ask your questions. We want to know what it is that you're facing in your offices so we can be prepared for the upcoming budget deliberations this summer. So with that, Griffin, I will hand it over to you. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Clerk Russell. All right. Welcome, everyone, to the budget training for the county fiscal year 22-23 budget package submission. Thank you for taking the time to join us this afternoon. The budget submission package that we will discuss today is very similar to what we did last year and contains three forms: the budget issue request spreadsheet, the revenue projection spreadsheet, and the signed certification letter. These are the forms and instructions that were emailed out to everyone back on April 5th, and they're also available on the CCOC website as well for download. These forms are due to the CCOC by the statutory deadline of June 1st, but you are more than welcome to turn them in anytime before then if you'd like. And to echo what Clerk Russell just stated, please submit any request that you might need over your current budget amount that you're operating on this year. The additional funding needed to cover a majority of your requested issues may not be available this year, but with your assistance, we can create an accurate needs-based budget that the legislative committee can take to the legislature to relay what is truly needed to properly fund the clerks. And this can't be done without your help. So please examine your office to determine what budget dollars are needed to properly fund your office at the level you determine is appropriate to carry out statutory duties. Some things to consider include staff pay, resources for compliance and collection efforts, meeting timeliness standards, etc., anything like that. And also, before we jump in, to set a baseline, last month, the Budget Committee adopted the 22-23 base budget, which is two components. One is the $444.8 million revenue limited budget that we are currently operating on this fiscal year, as well as adding in the FRS increase for each county based on the increases approved by the legislature. And that totals just over $3.5 million. And this is what I sent out to everyone earlier this week on Tuesday, I believe. So let's start with the easiest form first, the certification letter. I'll pull that up. So this is a PDF that is to be signed by the elected clerk, and it certifies three things. One, the budget issues requested represent the salaries, benefits, and costs for all budgeted expenditures of court-related functions. Two, the budget issues requested do not include expenditures associated with local requirements that are the county's responsibility, nor do they include expenditures for non-court-related functions. And then three, revenues used to support court-related operations are included within the revenue projection submitted and will not be used for non-court related purposes. So essentially, this letter asserts that the statutory guidelines have been followed in requesting the 22-23 funding. And so it's a one-page PDF. We put the date, county name, and then the signature of the elected clerk. Are there any questions on the certification letter? All right, seeing no questions. All right, we can jump to the second piece of the submission package, which is the revenue projections spreadsheet. So I'll pull that up. So this is the same spreadsheet as last year, as well as the same spreadsheet that we used for the operational budget submission back in December. This projection is for September of this year through August of 2023. It's important to project as accurately as possible, since this will determine our funded and depository calculation for the year. So please ensure that everything is filled out correctly on here. County name, contact, email address, so we know who to contact if we have any questions. Nope, can't copy and paste. But just if you put your email. Projection date for this form should be as of June 1st, 2022, because again, that's when the statutory deadline is. So please type in June 1st, 2022, if that's true, and then the version that you are submitting. So I won't bore you with filling in the revenue projections, but it's done by month. And if any rows are left blank or other anomalies exist in your data, please provide an explanation in either line 14 or 25 in the additional notes box, these two boxes right here. So again, it's pretty straightforward, and this is the same form that we have used in the recent past. So are there any questions on the revenue projections form? I don't see any hands, so okay. All right, well, the third piece of the budget submission process is probably why we're all here, and this is the budget issue request spreadsheet. So this Excel file contains 5 tabs for requested budget issues. If you have more than 5 tabs, please use a second spreadsheet, and you may submit as many spreadsheets as you need. So this is similar to what we did last year as well. And again, please request any budget issues or additional FTE needed above the current operating budget that you have right now. And these budget requests will be for October 1, when our county fiscal year starts, through September 30th, 2023. So real quick, mentioning these, if you do need additional spreadsheets, additional tabs, more than 5 issues, to indicate that in the file name. Up here, you can see the file name. It's the same that we used previously, but between issue and version, please add a Form A and a Form B, and then if you have a third one, a Form C. So it'd be your county name, the county fiscal year, budget issue, Form A, version 1. And that way we can correctly intake that. All right, so we'll fill out a couple examples here and then answer any questions that you might have. So again, we'll fill out the pertinent information up top. We'll choose Alachua because it's alphabetically first. Then we enter a contact name. So this will be the person that we contact. If we have any questions at the CCOC, this is who we'll reach out to. So email address. And then, all right, so priority, we have already pre-filled the priority number for each of these tabs. So if you go through each tab, priority 2, priority 3, they correspond to the tab number. So that way, you can put your most important issues first. That's the first priority. So in our scenario, the most important issue that we have is going to be for additional FRS increase. And additional meaning that earlier this week, we sent out this spreadsheet. And this has what builds into the base budget that we mentioned earlier. So column C is the current budget, the revenue limited budget that we have this year. And then we have added a calculated FRS increase, which leads us to column E, which is the total base budget to start this year. And this was adopted by the budget committee last month. So for Alachua, the FRS increase here in row D, or excuse me, column D is just over 48,000. But in our scenario, we actually calculate that we need $15,000 in addition to that 48,000. So we need a little over 63,000 total for FRS. We received the 48. So on this issue, we're going to ask for the additional 15,000. So that would be a recurring issue. So from the drop down, please select yes or no. So we would select yes. The issue type, there are 2 options. So please select one of the 2 from the drop down. Funding issue if we're requesting additional budget, and a reduction issue if we are decreasing our budget. So we are asking for additional funds, so it's a funding issue. And then the issue categories, there are 11 issue categories that we have, a few slight changes from last year, as well as an other, and I'll go over those in more detail in a minute. But for now, we are asking for additional FRS, so we'll select that, additional FRS funding. So then we come down here, we make sure we fill out all 7 of the boxes up top, all 7 are filled out, so we move down. So again, we are not requesting any new FTE, so we leave line 11 blank. And then for the 15,000, it's either personnel, operating, or capital. Since this is salaries and benefits dollars, all of it will be in personnel. And we have divided it between our service areas. So we need 5,000 in case processing, 5,000 in financial processing, and 5,000 in administration. So we double check in column L, that is our total column. So $15,000 increase, that is correct. So we move down to the issue request detailed box. So this looks a little different than last year, but again, please put as much detail and as much backup on as much supporting documentation as you can in these boxes. The more that we have to justify, the better. So I won't type it out, but for example, in this issue request funding for additional FRS funding, we received $48,000 in the base budget this year. However, we calculate $15,000 more for a total need of $63,000 because ABCD. We calculated this on, and then whatever that detail would be, 8 additional FTE that are receiving increases or whatever the justification is. This is where we would put as much detail as possible. So once we type all of that in there, we just double check everything is filled out. That is our #1 priority. So that is good to go on that issue. So our second issue that we need in this scenario is for compliance. So we need an additional FTE for compliance efforts, to increase our compliance efforts to increase revenue. So if you'll notice, for the rest of the tabs after tab 1, the county and contact information is grayed out. That's because we pull what we have from the first tab into the rest of the tabs. So that way you don't have to bother typing it again. It automatically pulls it over. That's why it's grayed out. So again, this is our second highest priority issue. So we leave priority 2 there. And since this is a compliance FTE that we'll need moving forward, that is a recurring issue. So we select yes from the drop-down box. Issue type. So again, we are asking for additional funding, additional budget. So it's a funding issue. And then for the issue category, again, one of the 11 is compliance. So we will select compliance services. All right, we make sure all 7 boxes are filled out, and then we can come down here. So we are requesting 1 additional FTE for this issue, and it's in the revenue collection and distribution service area. So up here, we will add our 1 additional new FTE that we will be requesting. Then for personnel, this is salaries and benefits, and we're going to put both salaries and all benefits for this requested position in this one issue. So last year, there's a little bit of confusion with health insurance increases and FRS increases that were requested issues. They only put the salary on this tab and they put those items on a separate tab. Please include everything needed for this one position on this one tab. So we'll do salaries and benefits, which we're going to say is $45,000 for the year. And then we also have a $500 operating package that goes with that employee. So again, we check our column L, 1 new FTE, $45,000 of salaries and benefits, and $500 for our operating package, totaling $45,500. That matches our notes, so we're good to go. So we come down here again to the issue request detailed box. So in here we want to put as much detail as we can. So this issue requests funding for the salaries and benefits dollars associated with a new FTE, which is a government analyst 1 position, to assist in compliance efforts to increase revenues. We project with this this new employee that will do ABC, that we will increase revenues by X dollars. So then we come down here. The second question is, does this request additional newly created FTE? Yes, it does. So we select yes. If so, how many? Up here we asked for 1, so we will type in 1 FTE. And then in this box, since we are requesting additional FTE, this is where we can put all of that related information. For example, salaries equals 35,000. Let's say health insurance equals 8,000 and FRS equals 2,000. And that's how we were able to calculate the 45,000 that we put up above. So we would do that breakdown, as well as, the operating amount of $500 is for, whatever that is, a chair, a desk, pens and pencils, and some paper. So again, please provide as much detail as you possibly have for this for justification. So again, once everything, we make sure that our totals agree, that all 7 boxes are filled out up top, and then we move on to our third priority issue. All right, this is our third and final issue in this year's budget request. And this is for an administrative order that we need more budget for, because let's say a judge requires an additional report to be completed. So again, we make sure we're on the third tab. It's the third priority, and that's the order that we're going in. So our county and contact information pulls over from the first tab. That's good to go. Priority number 3, yep. So this would be a recurring issue. So we select yes from the drop-down box. We are asking for additional budget, so that will be the funding issue selected from the drop-down box. And then issue category, one of the 11 preset issues on here is AO court order rule change. So yes, this is for an AO, so we select that. Then we come down here. So for this, we have calculated that we need half an FTE to handle the requirements of this administrative order. And so we just determine that it's in case processing. So we'll put our 0.5 FTE, and you can go all the way to a second decimal if you would like, however you calculate it best. So again, there's personnel, operating, and capital costs. So for this half FTE for the AO, we have calculated it at $20,000, and then we put in 250, just half of our operating package. So again, we come to column L. We make sure that our total requests match what we have. 0.5 FTE, $20,000 in personnel, 250 in operating, and that gives us our total here in L16. So again, we'll come down here and put as much information as possible. And for this one, we would put, we have 150 new reports per week are now required. That takes us, we've calculated that to take 20 hours a week, times 52 weeks, 1,040. And that's how we calculated the half FTE. And then we would fill out the same boxes here. Does this request a new FTE? Yes. If so, how many? 0.5. Again, we want to make sure that matches what we are requesting in L11. Those match, and then we put as much detail here as we possibly can. So if we had a fourth issue, and again, we'll go over these issue categories in a minute, but please try to the best of your ability, fit your request into one of these 11 preset issues. If for some reason it's not one of these, then you can select other. And when you do that, it will give you a drop-down box in J8, and then please describe, what that is in the other box. But I think most of the, if not all of the requests from last year could be siloed into one of these 11 issue categories. Again, the contact information is, should we have any questions here at the CCOC, that's who we're going to reach out to. For priority numbers, please do not skip or duplicate any priority numbers. Again, we've already kind of preset them into the tabs. if you have, let's say you have 7 total budget issues, when you have your second sheet, which is the Form B, you've already entered your first 5. So now this is the second sheet. On number 1, you can just make that priority 6. You know, tab 2 can be priority 7 and so on. Not 14. So that is for the priorities. And again, please don't leave any of these blank, these first 7 boxes up here that gives us the information for the issue. You know, again, like last year, each issue, the funding and the FTE for each issue is broken out into the 9 clerk court service areas listed here in line 10. And we talked about doing the detailed explanation, again, as much information. And if you would like to provide supporting documentation, that's optional, but always appreciated. And if you do, please also send that with your submission to the CCOC reports email. And then, you know, just make sure that the county name and the priority number or issue title is in the title. That way we can make sure that we properly link that back up when we compile everything. So the 11 issue categories that we mentioned, and again, you can find those by going to this drop-down box here. They are additional FRS funding. And again, that is for anything above the spreadsheet that we sent out earlier this week that's already included in base budget. So again, you know, the budget committee has determined that the FRS increase calculated here in column D for next year is what you've got based on the increase. If you are good with that number, then you don't have to request any additional FRS funding. That will be included in your base budget moving forward. If you feel that you need additional budget on top of that, then please again just request that difference amount. So anything on top of what's in column D. The second one is additional health insurance funding. So that's any additional health insurance dollars that you would need above your current year health insurance amount. So any increases. New judges funding. Lake is the only county that received a new judge in 2022. However, this category can also be used for if a judge is transferred between counties. The AO court order rule change, we went over that one. That's funding to support any of those items that impact court-related options. There is an audit funding, or excuse me, audit finding issue category, and that is for any funding you need to correct an audit finding from DFS or another audit. Compliance, funding to support compliance efforts as a means to increase revenue. Cost shift to or from county, we had a few of those last year, but that's funding to cover the cost of court-related services that are currently being funded by the county, or a reduction of costs that should be covered by the county moving forward. Efficiencies, that's pretty broad, but just anything that improves office efficiencies would go under that issue. IT funded from CCOC for court-related costs for IT purposes. Paid benefit and COLA, this was our most used issue category from last year. You know, that can be for anything from raises to compression issues, minimum wage, you know, cost of living adjustments, etc. You know, that would be paid benefits and COLA. Performance measures is funding to meet performance measure standards or to correct identified deficiencies. So those are the 11. The last one again is the 12th is other. So anything that you need that doesn't fall in one of those 11 preset categories. But again, please, you know, carefully review the listed, issue categories before choosing this option if possible. So that is the issue categories. And as far as data entry goes, if possible, please hand key all information, especially numerical values, instead of copying and pasting to avoid issues that would prevent your submission from entering into our database. And also, please do not link cells to other spreadsheets or use formulas in the spreadsheets because it might accept it on here, but when we pull it into our aggregate database, sometimes that causes errors in pulling that. So again, once you finalized the submissions, please send all of these to the CCOC reports email by June 1st. And again, you can submit it early if you would like. And if you have any questions with anything related to this, please feel free to call me or Raphael, or you can send us an email, you can give us a call, whatever you would like to do. So are there any questions on the issue request spreadsheet?
There was a question in the chat from Jennifer Spinelli asking about changing the numbers on the tabs. And I responded in the chat, the tabs will be locked. So that's why using that priority number will be very important.
Right, that's a great point. And thank you for the question. So yes, and that will get confusing if you have a second spreadsheet. So yeah, we do have these locked, but if this was the second spreadsheet again, even though it says budget issue number 1, it's really your 6th priority. Please just make sure up here in priority number that you put a 6. And that way, like Marlene said, we'll be able to identify that. Any other questions? Any other issues that you had from last year? No?
Griffin, if someone is using electronic signature for the clerk certification, do they need to take any extra steps?
If you use an electronic signature, please just make sure that the signature is visible when you select that. But yeah, that's a good question. Thank you, Marlene. Okay. Well, if that's it, again, we're always here. We can answer any other questions that you have as you start to, enter this data. Again, thank you for your time. We look forward to compiling these and yeah, we're here to help.
And to let everyone know as a reminder that this video will be posted on the CCOC website, and so you'll get a notification from Griffin when that's available.
That is correct. I'll make sure we get that sent out that it's posted. Okay. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, then I hope everyone has a great day.
You guys too.